What's going on, everyone? Today has been the most exciting day of the week. We have giant news to go over with Apple earnings and their $90 billion share buyback. We also have some crazy news to go over related to AMD and how they're partnering with Microsoft. The stock is booming. We also have crazy and somewhat rare news in the marijuana industry right now. And then on top of that, we have some very important things to go over related to the overall market and DraftKings stocks. So we have an amazing video today. If there was one video throughout the entire week that you did not want to miss, it is this one. Stick with us all the way towards the end, as we also have a $10.8 million trade. $10.8 million. Make sure to stick with us today. But Tom, let's get right into it.
Yeah, Mike, it was a pretty crazy day overall. The overall market took a pretty big tumble in the morning and it actually went pretty flat. We were pretty much choppy all throughout the day on the SPY, and the market was very mixed. There was a lot of stocks that fell off today, like Penn Gaming, Peloton, and other stocks like that with some bad earnings. We did have some good earnings, though, with good old Shopify. They actually reported this morning. I know that I have a lot of people were looking at that one tonight. They kind of surprised me, Mike. They had it today in pre-market, and they ended up exploding. That was a good move, 23.84%. That is no joke right there. They're not really correlated to the SPY too much either, so I like that. They can kind of have a mind of their own and maybe continue off this. That was a really good explosion throughout the day. And then even AMD had that big move up in the middle of the day too. So we did have a couple tech stocks moving up, but the NASDAQ really couldn't get going just because, a lot of those larger stocks were really lagging behind today, like NVIDIA and others.
No doubt. Now, you mentioned AMD. That intraday price action is nothing to ignore. Like, this stock was just like on a rocket ship for, a good portion of the day. So what actually caused like all this buying pressure, and like what's the situation here?
Yeah, they're moving in a huge way, and they're actually partnering with Microsoft to make some AI chips, Mike. This is amazing. Now, Microsoft did not really get too big of a move off this, obviously being the bigger company here, but AMD had a huge explosion, and for them to be working with Microsoft isn't really a big surprise. Apparently, they've already been working together on chips and stuff like that. Like it says right here, AMD's already a supplier for Microsoft, but for them to be developing this AI chip together, that's codenamed Athena, is going to be very interesting. They're going to be able to train models and make inferences on new data and etc. per Bloomberg. So that's good to hear. And it's going to be amazing for them to compete with Amazon and Google, the other two tech powerhouses who already have their own specialized chips. So it sounds great. AMD is going to probably benefit from this one pretty well. And it's just good to see AMD, continuing to put themselves out there. They've been really gaining in popularity over the past few years. Even, they've been pushing ahead of Intel a lot. And I'll tell you what, they're right on the heels of NVIDIA now, too.
I mean, the investors sure loved it in the market today, as we can tell by AMD stock. I think a couple key takeaways with this is like, when you have a partnership with Microsoft and you have financial backing from Microsoft, that is pretty big. But on top of that, like over the past couple of months, the key buzzword has been basically anything to do with AI or artificial intelligence. If you look at ticker symbol AI on a daily chart, this thing just straight up exploded, and so many other artificial intelligence related stocks have just been booming lately. So it's like when you have Microsoft news and the combination of like AI that's hot right now, that makes for a pretty explosive stock reaction.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I will say it just came right at the perfect time, Mike. AMD's been kind of lingering back down to this big trend line that we've been bouncing off of a lot over the past year. And it actually ended up bouncing and getting this news right as we touched it today. If we go to that 5-minute chart, it was actually a near perfect touch in after hours and pre-market this morning. So pretty cool to see it bouncing off that trend line. Maybe some people got in off of that. And then, hey, it's always good to see that news just helping to power it even higher there. I mean, it just lined up perfectly. And I know that we mentioned a lot of marijuana stocks also getting good news today, like Tilray. We can see the MJ ETF had a pretty good move up. One of my favorites, Planet 13, PLNHF, had a great move as well. And it looks like that banking bill hearing could be held as soon as next week, a key Senate committee chairman said. So that's huge to me, Mike. And in quotes, they said that they're going to move quickly on it. That is something pretty rare in the world of government where things take years and years to happen. So let's hope this gets done sooner rather than later. Like it says, as early as next week. So for the short term, this could be huge for some calls over the next month or so.
So like the thing with marijuana stocks and the marijuana industry is that they have so much potential, but the government regulations are so tough where it's like it makes it so hard for these companies to actually grow. And essentially, because marijuana is banned on the federal level, these companies just have a really hard problem with many things, especially related to banking and just loans and all that stuff. So basically, any sort of developments, related to the government and the marijuana industry is huge for marijuana stocks. Now, my favorite marijuana stock to trade is TLRY. This stock goes absolutely insane when there's good news. Most of the time, it just slowly fades down, but every now and then, sometimes it only happens like once or twice a year or even less than that. A good article, a good, any sort of event comes out and this stock goes insane. I remember back in 2018, this stock went from like $26 all the way up to $300 in like just a couple weeks or months. And then again in the end of 2020 and then the beginning of 2021, this stock basically went from like $5 all the way up to highs of like 67. So it's definitely a runner, but it all depends on like the event / situation. And this event is definitely a good start.
Yeah, it really is. Like you said, they have a lot of problems with loans and stuff like that with banking. So it's going to be huge for them to finally be able to maybe, use that money in a better way and be able to position their companies just better on a balance sheet standpoint. So that's going to be great. There's a lot of stocks out there. MSOS is a really good ETF that has a lot of stocks mixed in. It ran up 9% on this move today. It was one of the better ones I saw. Like you said, Tilray is a good one. I really like PLNHF. It's Planet 13. It's kind of like a marijuana store / dispensary. Pretty big company though. They operate in Las Vegas and stuff like that. So there's a lot of plays out there, Mike. And I will say though, with these stocks, they're always pretty risky. So honestly, like whatever I put into them, I don't really expect too much back. And just keep in mind, it could take a little while for some of these plays to finally work out.
No doubt. So Tom, now for the information that a bunch of people are looking for, that is related to Apple earnings. You typed it in even before I finished saying it. But basically, Apple in after hours has been moving up a little bit, and their earnings were decent, I'll say. So what's good is that Apple beat on revenue and earnings expectations. That's a good sign. They had strong iPhone sales data. But what's kind of suspicious is like, everyone's celebrating, yay, Apple beat their expected, sales data. But the problem is that this is actually the second quarter in a row where their sales are actually coming in lower. So that's not necessarily a good thing, and revenue is falling year over year. So it's like, yay, they beat expectations. But it's like when you look further into it, it's like, yeah, it's really not that great.
Yeah, it's really not. But I will say, though, for that iPhone revenue to come in that much better than the expectation must have really helped them. Could you imagine, Mike, if this came in $2 to $3 billion less and came in closer to that expectation, they might not have even beat on revenue. So we got to keep that in mind. And then that would have dropped the EPS down too. So it would have, if that iPhone revenue didn't surprise, that could have been pretty bad. So it was good to see that up, but the Mac revenue fell and the iPad revenue fell too a little bit. So keep that in mind. There's always a lot of numbers with Apple. They have so many different products and subscriptions and stuff like that. Like that's included in the services revenue. So keep that in mind too. Like Tim Cook said, though, it was a good quarter for the iPhone, particularly relative to the market when you look at market stats. Because like they said, they were expecting a pretty big drop there, and it was good to see it hold its ground a little bit.
I think there are two hidden things that like basically single-handedly carried at the Apple earnings reaction. The first one being the $90 billion share buyback. So $90 billion is just gonna get plowed into Apple stock of direct buying pressure. So that's always a good thing. You know, if you own any company, you want to see news like this for multiple reasons. Makes the earnings look better, and then it also adds direct buying pressure into the company. And it decreases the total supply of shares, which makes your shares more valuable. So, you know, $90 billion with the buying pressure is definitely awesome. And then on top of that, they did very slightly increase their dividend by 4%, but it's still very, very small in the grand scheme of things. The dividend is like 0.55%. So it's like basically nothing, but you know, when you're a shareholder and you see your dividend increase and a buyback like this, you know, it is good news in that sense.
Yeah, it is. I will say though, to me, the biggest thing is definitely that iPhone revenue, but I definitely feel you there. The thing is, what'd you say it was? Only like 55 cents on the dividend per share? Like it's pretty low, but or what was it, 0.55%? It's pretty low, but you know, any increase is good. And hopefully Apple keeps growing, then they can maybe grow it, you know, continually, and that'll be good signs for them. But that move in after hours is pretty good. It's starting to even, you know, filter over into the NASDAQ and a couple of other stocks. So maybe we'll start to push up into the green a little bit more tomorrow, Mike. I know today was a pretty bad chop fest. So, you know, it's going to maybe pick a good direction for us tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll have to see. What I'm very curious on is if Apple will truly be able to hold its ground. It's like, yeah, it's moving up a little bit in after hours, and that's awesome, but as we all know, earnings can turn on a dime. So it's like if we wake up tomorrow morning and the market's down and Apple actually turned red, then it's like, all right, I'm not going to be too confident because, you know, even with this kind of like fluffed up earnings, you know, you still can't really hold hold the green price action. But, you know, at the same time, sometimes we see the market run to the upside in just, you know, I guess you could say okay news, and that's also a possible situation. So the way I look at the market going into tomorrow is like, you know, really just going to be based off of, I guess you could say the sentiment that we currently have. And I'm very, very, very curious to see what Apple will look like tomorrow right around open.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like it's kind of pointing back up right now. And another one that I'm going to be really curious of tomorrow, Mike, is one of our all-time favorites on the channel. We've talked about this stock time and time again. It's good old DraftKings. I am loving it in after hours, Mike. They closed around $21.30. They're all the way up to $23.37 in after hours. If we go out to that hourly chart, that is actually a new high going all the way back to last May. So that's a huge breakout there, all the way up to 23.50. Love to see it with DraftKings. And going over to some of their some of their better things here, Mike. Something that really caught my eye with them is that they're raising full year 2023 revenue guidance midpoint by 8% to 3.185 billion, and full year 2023 adjusted EBITDA guidance midpoint by 85 million to negative 315 million. That's really good that they're actually raising that guidance like that, Mike. The guidance here all across the board looks amazing. Even like their expected Q2 2023 adjusted EBITDA looks great here.
Exactly. So, you know, of course, DraftKings is a growth company. They're still in their very early stages right now. What I love to see as a complete long-term investor into this company is, of course, revenue growing 84% year over year. You're not seeing that in basically any other stock in the entire market right now. But we're also starting to see some daylight when it comes to, you know, adjusted EBITDA. So we could see for the second quarter of 2023, they're expecting the adjusted EBITDA to be around break even, which is good. And then by Q4 of 2023, they're expecting adjusted EBITDA to be in the green by 150 million. So obviously it's still a growth company. It has a long way to go. They have a lot more to do, but I definitely do like these optimistic outlooks, and the market sure does too.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, they have a lot of good stuff going for them right now. Another good thing is that they launched their sports betting in Ohio and Massachusetts during Q1 acquired 7% of the adult population in Ohio, 6% of the adult population in Massachusetts. The more states that they keep getting legalized and then getting going in and becoming operational in, they're going to just continue to grow that revenue and, just continue to do better and better. And there's a lot of huge states out there that are still not even in this. Imagine whenever California, Texas, and some of those bigger states start getting involved. I think that this stock will start to do even better. And if we look on the daily chart, they've been down for a long time down here at lows. It's really good to see them finally getting some strength back.
There we go. So Tom, it is now finally time for some setups for tomorrow. One stock I'm watching extra close tomorrow is Tilray. And we talked about this one just a couple minutes ago. It is one of those marijuana stocks, but it's starting to see some really good volume and just bullish flow come into it. So I'm going to have a close eye on it tomorrow. Of course, there's that news with the basically cannabis reform bill going on as well. So if we wake up tomorrow or, just any point during the market tomorrow and we see the same type of bullish activity that we saw today with that solid upwards price action, I will definitely be watching it to the upside.
Yeah, me too. Those marijuana stocks are kind of starting to heat up. And like we talked about, whenever Tilray starts to go, it can start to really get up there. So keep your eyes on it. Going to be one of the hotter stocks, I think, over the next week or so. One stock, though, that is not hot right now is Meta, Mike. And we are hitting right off of a key trend line right here. Let's go ahead and check it out. It is perfect. 2 hits right off this trend line here. And this was the third one. So it's good to see us hitting off that and breaking right back down. We did actually see it fall off very early today and yesterday due to some pretty bad news with the FTC where they might not be able to monetize young users' data. So that's pretty rough. They went all the way down to 233.50 at the end of day today. And if we go out on an hourly chart, they are still extremely, and I mean extremely overextended. So with the bad news and everything, if we end up falling under like 232, I could definitely see this one continuing down.
Sounds good. I actually have a very similar setup to this Meta one, and it's actually with NVIDIA. So they are also very overextended to the upside, and they're starting to see some bearish flow in the short term. So basically, I will be watching it to the downside tomorrow. They have a decent support right around like this 274 to 273 area. If it breaks below that, I'll definitely be watching it to the downside.
Yeah, I think this one's awesome. And especially with AMD, getting that good news, a nice competitor, you would think NVIDIA might start to kind of fall back a little bit more. So I'm with you. And just anyways, they're just too overextended, just like Meta is. So I like it. And another bad one that had a pretty rough day again is Disney. I will say the market was very choppy. We did have some green stocks like Shopify, but for the most part, I will say a lot of stocks were red. If Disney gets under 96.50 tomorrow, I'm going to watch for this one to continue. That's a pretty big area of support. But if we do end up breaking above 98, I think we could maybe see a push back up to around 100. So I have 2 levels on this one, but Disney had that big move down, so I'm expecting a bigger continuation tomorrow.
Sounds good. Alrighty, well, you guys heard those plays for tomorrow, and it is also time for the momentum plays. With the first one, we actually have Meta to the downside, and this is actually one of Tom's setups.
Yeah, so 232 is going to be a big level here. There was some resistance or support today around 234. We kind of got under that. So if we're able to get under 232 here tomorrow, I think we could really go down. We recently had a big gap up with earnings, and we might start to fill that gap a little bit, which could make for some amazing potential for some day trades.
Sounds good. With the next one, we have NIO to the upside.
Good old NEO. Nice to see them recovering. Go ahead and make them break out above $8.20.
All right. And with the last one, we have Netflix, and we need both directions.
NFLX. Very choppy today with the market. I will say I'm noticing a bit of like a trend here on Netflix. If they're able to get out above 323, go ahead and watch for calls tomorrow. That's a pretty big upper resistance level. If they fall under 320, then look at puts.
Sounds great. So you guys heard Tom. We have that upside level. If it breaks above that, we're watching it for a day trade up. Then we have that downside level as well. If it breaks below that, we're watching it for a day trade down. Don't forget about NIO with that upside level and Meta with that downside level. but it is now time for the $10.8 million trade of the day. Tom, this is a big one, $10.8 million. Basically, we are looking at BX. We are looking more specifically at the BX $92.50 strike put options that expire on June 16th of 2023. $10.8 million went into this option. If you don't know how options work, essentially someone is dumping, you could call it 10.8 or just $11 million that this stock has a lot of room to fall. The more the stock falls, the more millions this trader makes. BX is Blackstone. They're an investment management company, and there's been so much pressure on the financial system lately for multiple reasons, but especially because of what we have going on in like the banking system. If we look at stocks like WAL or PACW or just stocks like that, like regional bank stocks, they have been getting hammered lately. So obviously when you have this type of selling pressure and fear in the banking industry, it is not good for basically any companies related to the finance sector. So, it makes sense. I can see why someone's putting this much money into a downside play on it. And Tom, I don't think the setup's bad at all.
It's really not. The only worry is that BX is like kind of around some of these big areas of support, like $80 and $75 here. And that is a little bit of a worry. But with all these bank stocks having the turmoil that they are, I would not be surprised if BX started to fall down a little bit more and just continue on this slide. It wasn't even just them today. All the bank stocks had a rough day. JP Morgan, Bank of America. Look at Bank of America. They're actually breaking big supports like as we speak. So, keep your eyes on BX. I think that there could definitely be downside movement here. These are big supports, but I think that it looks like they're about to break, especially given that the powerhouse Bank of America is breaking some.
No doubt. So keep a very close eye on this one in the short term. It's definitely a setup you don't want to ignore, especially given the dollar amount. $10.8 million is not something you see like even every month. So keep a close eye on it. But if you guys are into short-term trading, definitely check this out. Our bots have been on fire lately. Looking at some of the bot plays today, we'll start off in the day trading channel, Tom. We can see the Airbnb put play was alerted at $403 each. It popped all the way up to $488 each. If we look at some of the other premium plays of the day, we had SPY put options alerted at $269 each. These popped up to $368. Then we had another play with Boeing that went from $453 all the way up to $660. And then we had another play with Moderna, and this one was to the upside. This went from $545 all the way up to $590. And we just had an absolute monster setup the other day with Adobe. Basically, this one just went absolutely insane. Popped for 200%. Yes, 200%. Like, it was one of the best plays in a while. Essentially what happened is Adobe put options were alerted at $508 each, and it went all the way up to $1,520 each. These are just a couple examples, but if you're into short-term trading, check out that link in the description in the comments down below. We are raising prices very, very, very soon, as in next week. And we also have a giant update coming on Monday. So the bots have been crushing it, and they're only about to get a whole lot smarter on Monday. So if you've been on the sidelines waiting to join, now is the time. We're raising prices. We have a giant update coming on Monday. And if you want to take action, you will save $41 off your first month, only if you use the link in the description in the comments down below. In addition to day trades from our custom bots, you will also get access to swing plays and these multi-million dollar $10.8 million trades with BX like we saw earlier just a couple minutes ago, but you get access to them before the market closes each day, which normally I guess you could say offers better entry prices. So definitely check it out. And while we're in the Discord, I want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Profit Hunter. You absolutely crushed it today. You could see he did pretty well with the Boeing sniper bot play with about a $475 profit and almost $4,000 in profits on the day alone. So awesome job, Profit Hunter. Keep up the great work. But Tom, we had a crazy, crazy week. and we're finally coming to the end of it. We're past all the major earnings. Do you have any final thoughts or anything else you're watching?
Yeah, just one final thing here at the end. On the economic calendar, we do have some non-farm payrolls and unemployment rates tomorrow morning coming out. It looks like they're not really expected to move all that much. So I don't know. Watch out for these. They could be a little bit of like an outlier in the market right now, but I feel like Apple's earnings are going to definitely overshadow those. So keep your eyes on Apple. It looks like it's holding up well right now. And hey, let's go DraftKings. If we open up over $23, I'll be so happy with this one.
There we go. All right, guys. Well, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And again, if you're into short-term trading, check out that first link in the description in the comments down below. But besides that, let's have an amazing end to the week.